Welcome, Kanwal. Please go ahead.
Hi, welcome everybody. Welcome to our virtual V-Talk. And today, me, Kamaljeet Kaur, as an influencer, I would like to uh, come up with a webinar which is entirely about fraud investigation, forensics, cyber disruption, vulnerability, and also how the businesses are getting impacted by COVID effect. So that's the theme of today's session. And I would like to introduce my jury first. So I would like to start with my jury member, Akhil Iyer first. So Akhil Iyer is having a very vast experience. He's a chartered accountant, he's MBA, he's a SEMA. He has worked with corporates like Google, EY, and British Council. And of course, he's a very famous in his own stream when it comes to, he's a very good speaker. So I would like to give this session to Akhil. Akhil will take this journey on. Akhil, over to you. Please unmute Akhil Iyer.
Hi, Kamal. Thank you so much. Good afternoon to all the fellow panelists and all the participants on the call. It's indeed a pleasure to be here on the first Women ETA. In fact, while Kamalji was talking, I was looking at the jury members. And when I used to be in corporate, we used to talk about diversity and diversity. One of the elements of diversity used to be the male-female ratio. So we've come, I think, a long way across because in today's session, I am minority and it's being led by women from different fields. So welcome everybody. Now, at this point in time, I would like to understand from Vaishali. So I'll briefly introduce Vaishali. Now, Vaishali has a 15 plus year of corporate experience. She's currently working as the finance process owner at British Council. When she's not working with numbers or with the balance sheets, she's also a poet and she's also an anchor on several platforms. So, Vaishali, at this point in time, I would like to understand from you in very simple words, what is your takeaway in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat? Vaishali?
Sure. Thanks, Akhil. Good afternoon, everyone. As rightly Akhil has asked, so COVID-19 crisis has created an opportunity to restructure Indian economy. And with the scenario wherein our global supply chains have been disrupted because of COVID-19 crisis, as well as because of our border standoff with China, our Prime Minister has given a clarion call for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Our MSMEs and startups have been a backbone for revival of our economy. So in the spirit of MSMEs and startups to revive again, in the wake of Atmanirbhar Bharat, I would like to dedicate a few lines which I've composed. Bigul bhaj raha Bharat, Bigul bhaj raha Bharat Atmanirbhar ho, आज समय है, सूक्ष्म लघु मध्यम उद्योग स्टार्टअप्स के साथ विजय है. ये नींव हमारे भारत की, ये नींव हमारे भारत की, माना कोविड से हिली है, पर फिर खड़े होकर लहराएं, इन्हें हिम्मत ऐसी मिली है, इन्हें हिम्मत ऐसी मिली है. Thank you.
Great, wonderful lines, Vaishali. So a perfect start to the session with a few lines of poetry from you. So I have always loved the poetry that you do. Now, our second panelist for today is Nitya. So Nitya is currently working as an associate with 314 Capital. She's an investment associate. She's been working with startups. Previously, she was working with Gartner. Her hobbies include traveling and debating, and she's also a SEMA qualified professional. Now, Nitya, at this point in time, so I was reading a report from McKinsey and other organizations, and it says that Indian startup ecosystem is coming third just after US and UK, right? So given that you are from a startup background, what are your takeaways in terms of what is changing, some of the trends that are emerging in the startup space?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's great to be here, and thank you, Tripti, Kavaljeet, and rest of the Women Leader team for having me. I work as a venture capitalist at an early stage fund called 314 based out of Bangalore. We're a 110 million asset under management firm, and in my day to day, I primarily spend a lot of time with startups, helping them achieve product market fit. Get them online to get funding and essentially it's never a dull day at work, right? So I've been doing this for almost 1.5 years now, and I think with or without COVID, as Akhil also pointed out, Indian economy is fast growing, and especially when it comes to the startup ecosystem, right? And what's also happened over the last 3-4 years is how the country is adopting digital has transformed entirely. And of course, I mean, Geo had a huge role to play in this. But apart from that, there's a report by BCG which also talks about, how we're expecting 850 million internet users in the country by 2025, right? So imagine a population of 1.3 billion today and having more than 60% of that population consuming internet on a day-to-day basis, and it has cascading implications, right? So not only does this open up the economy in terms of consumption, it also opens up the economy with respect to the kind of entrepreneurial opportunities one can pursue. And there's a very interesting reason that I say that, right? So of course, I mean, digital adoption, digital transformation, none of these things are new. But given where we sit and at the cusp of where we sit, there is an interesting trend that I've been seeing, which is a digital shift in the kind of demographic that's coming online, right? So when India started its e-commerce journey, the kind of users that were on the internet were primarily male uh, users in metros ordering appliances, and that continued to be the trend for the longest time. So if you see, there are 670 million internet users in India today, but hardly 28% of this audience transacts. And if one were to deep dive and understand why that happens, look around you, right? So we exist in families where women are CFOs in the offline world, so deciding which haldi powder to order, to like which TV to get in the house. All these decisions in the offline world were always in the hands of our mothers, grandmothers, and our sisters, right? But when we started this journey to come online, women weren't transacting users or weren't internet users in the first place. And similarly, if you see, if you do the urban rural divide, right? So the users that came online early on were actually urban users. So e-commerce was essentially trying to cater to urban users, but there is a huge untapped opportunity that exists in the rural market as well. So when I say that there is a digital demographic shift in today's audience, so there are two aspects where this plays out. So one is obviously, a more gender balanced approach to it. So the CFOs of the house coming online and actually burning a hole in your pocket. But it's also this untapped segment which is just waiting to be served, right? So from a rural population. So that's one thing that's happening. The other thing that's happening is that retail's expected to shift online. So if you see the slide that we're on today, right? So if you see there are 670 million internet users, and as I was telling you that only 28% of them shop today. But if by the time we reach 2027, even like a base case estimates this market to be at 65%, and are almost 30% plus of this activity to exit of the retail activity to move online, right? Can we also go back to the previous slide, by the way? Yeah. And the next trend that I want to talk about is how this adoption has entirely been mobile first, right? So a lot of first internet user journeys haven't been on your desktops, your tablets, your laptops, but they've actually been on mobile. And this is again, right? This is being facilitated by how not only cheap internet became as a result of Geo, but how cheap smartphones have become in the country, right? So as a result of all of these factors, I think where we sit, I've seen some very interesting things shape up, especially with respect to how digitally influenced spending is going to evolve. So coming back, digitally influenced spending also has two aspects to it. One is the transaction and the other is discovery. And I don't think I need to tell anyone that internet facilitates both of these things. But as a country today, the only 45 to 50 billion of this digital spend. There is only 45 to 50 billion a dollar spent in digital spend today, but this is going to drastically improve over the next 5 years, right? So imagine a 500 billion opportunity sitting on top of our smartphones. So as consumers, this is great because there is convenience at our hands. But as entrepreneurs, it's even more great because now you can tap into audience that you earlier wouldn't have able to even imagine without without these brick and mortar models that existed, let's say, a decade ago. So moving on, I think it's very essential to also factor in how COVID has impacted our lives, right? So can you please move a couple of slides ahead? The next one, please. Okay, so quickly touching upon, as I said, right, like I don't think we can have any conversation without understanding how COVID's impacted. We'll have to go back a slide ahead. I'll come back to this. Just one slide before this. So, so the impact of essentially, of course, I don't need to narrate the impact of COVID, but when it comes to startups, right, there has been like 4 interesting trends that played out for me and for the whole ecosystem in general, right? So if you had to look at how companies went through this struggle, I would put this across in 4 major baskets, right? So imagine this: the first one would be companies that were hit in the short run and would recover in the medium and long term. So imagine travel is completely wiped out, hospitality is almost wiped out. It has been the worst year for automobile in the country, but it is expected that once things begin to normalize, the demand is expected to come back in a period of 2 to 3 years. The other sort of impact that we've seen across companies, and this is me just talking general trends, right? That companies which have been hit in the short run, but will bounce back and grow faster in the long run. So imagine the demand for offline healthcare, diagnostics in the country, right? Even preventive diagnostics for that matter. All of these things are now suffering, and but are at the same time are also creating awareness about how important it is to have this structural infrastructure in place, right? So while there has been a tremendous impact right now, this has also highlighted the need for products to exist within these verticals. And then there are these third types of companies, and the kind of companies I call lucky. So which have seen spike currently, but they're expected to stabilize in the long run. So of course, education being one of them, right? All parents being home, and with kids being at home, it's become very essential for parents to keep their kids actively engaged. And on an average, any upper middle class family is now subscribing to, let's say, 3 or 4 different edtech products to keep their kids productively engaged. But once schools start to open up, of course, I mean, there will be a split between that time, and there are only so many products that this audience will be able to consume. So while there's a very interesting spike right now, a lot of this demand will get stabilized in the coming months. And the fourth sort of impact have been this kind of spike which has been in the short run, but which will keep gaining momentum in the long run. And I'll take this up when when we move to the next slide, right? So there's a mental framework that I really promote to understand, not only what's happening around you, but also if you're interested in understanding as an entrepreneur, right? Like if you enter this ecosystem, where all can you exist? So I would like to call this a cheat sheet. So yeah, can we move to the next?
So it was really good insight when it comes to how the businesses are getting impacted by COVID. And since we did talk about the cyber part, we did talk about the digital part. So I'll just pitch in between, and I'll come up to an interesting topic, which is about how fraud and how cyber things get in between. Now, whether we talk about startup, whether we talk about an individual, that's where we see a lot of disruptions coming through cyber threat. So before I move to the fraud part, I would like to just ask a question from audience. And Hariom, if you can just start the poll, please. I would like to have an insight as to what do you think about fraud, guys? So a simple question. What's the difference between fraud and error? How do you think fraud impacts us as a business or as an individual? So a quick question, poll. Few seconds, guys. We would just love to hear from you as to what do you think about the security measurements your company has? And you as an individual, how do you think how protected you are when it comes to cyber threats?
I think all of them have taken the poll and the results must have reached to the host. So Hariom, can you brief us about the results?
So guys, fraud and error is something where most of us would like to define it very simply, that the difference between fraud and error is simply a malicious intention. So when you know what you're doing wrong and you do it, we call it fraud. And when you do something unintentionally, we call it error. Now that's the difference between fraud and error. But trust me, this is very simple to define, but very hard to implement. Most of us as an individual or as a business does get impacted. And when we look at the current trend of cyber threats, it is going really, really high. Now I'll just give you a small example how cyber threat. Oh, okay. So in between, I have got the results of poll. Most of you think that the confidence level of yours in organization overall security posture is moderately confident and slightly confident. Some definitely think they are very, very confident about it. But let me tell you some statistic. Me, as a trainer in the forensic field, as well as I am involved in a lot of consulting when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to corporates, banks. With my personal experience, I can say that every single company is vulnerable to cyber threat, no matter how big or small it is. In fact, you will be very surprised to know that bank softwares are getting hacked every now and then. It's just that we may not be reading those news in the paper quite a lot, because when it comes out, of course, people really get scared about it. Not that the company is not secured, or not that the company is not having proper mechanism in place. It's just that when it comes to cyber threats, it is changing. The dynamics are changing. The way the threats are happening is changing. Every single day we see different kind of cyber fraud. During this tough time when people are struggling with their jobs, with their lives, people are still getting attacked. So every single day or every alternative day, my people from my contacts are telling me about the banking fraud. People are, the accounts are getting hacked, their bank accounts are getting hacked. So cyber threats is really, really high. Now, if you look at these kind of things, the cyber threat during lockdown, if I come to, the SMEs especially face a lot of threats. Now, SMEs are more exposed to cyber threat because of few reasons. One, that these days people are working from home. When people are working from home, they are using virtual private networks. We call it VPN. And the moment they use VPN, the security issues goes really up. A basic example: we go to airport, we get connected to the free Wi-Fi. Most of us really get fascinated. We just go and get connected to the free Wi-Fi, whether it's a coffee shop, whether it is airport. The moment you get connected to those kind of network, the problem arises. You never know, some hacker is sitting in the crowd, and it is an open network. The more you get exposed to open network, the more you're exposed to cyber threats. And that is where same thing is happening with SMEs also. When people are working from home, they are connecting to VPN, and then the problem arises. The second is with SMEs, since the business is at initial stage, the budget can be an issue. Sometimes we generally opt for cyber security system, which may be affordable. But then not every time an affordable system may be able to secure us properly. And that's where another problem arises, that we use some kind of security measurement which either do not protect us properly, or it is not capable of protecting us at all. So that's another problem which SMEs generally faces. The third problem which arises generally SMEs faces is the less access of IT support. When the people are working from office, the IT support is accessible. Now everything is going work from home these days. When you work from home, the IT access is there but remote, and also may not be as accessible as it was before. And that is where the problem arises, that less access of IT support is another issue, and SMEs face that threat. So these are few problems which SMEs are facing these days. Now, if we talk about as an individual, I think Akhil has an interesting story to share here. So Akhil, would you like to share about the Twitter story you told me other day about that, how individual get exposed to cyber threats?
Yes, Kamal. So I was just about to come to that. So two points, two interesting points that I would want to cover here. One from a corporate side and one from an individual side. So I was recently talking to one of my friends, and his grandfather happens to be about 92 years of age. So he recently moved on to Twitter. So he likes to talk about politics. So he opened up an account, signed up, and then started interacting with people on his Twitter account. And a few days later, his Twitter account got hacked, right? So while there was interest for him to kind of come onto a social media platform, because they're all moving toward the digital world, but then things like hacking and things like cyber frauds which happen, that is what causes a lot of vulnerability in terms of individuals adopting digital. So while there is a lot of push, which Nitya also spoke about, in fact one of the interesting statistics that we have is that by 2022 India will be a $1 trillion economy only in terms of digital. Right now, while the numbers looks very massive, but then unless and until we're able to prevent some of these frauds or cybersecurity things happening, that seems to be a distant journey, right? So we'll have to balance both these elements. Now, the other interesting fact is recently, we've all heard about this company called Garmin, right? So they're into GPS enabled watches. Now, they reported that their systems were hacked. And in fact, tomorrow and day after, which is 25th and 26th July, the production line in Taiwan is supposed to remain closed because they won't want to kind of resurrect the systems before things can kind of get along again. Similarly, Honda also reported that their systems, their network had some problem, because of which they're also facing issues around their production. So it is not only just the MSMEs which are getting impacted. Yes, they are, but it is also the individuals as well as corporates who are facing the same heat as we get more into the digital economy.
Right. So an interesting part. A lot of people from various age groups are coming online. And these days, if you look at your parents, your grandparents, the babies, the kids, everybody has phone in hand. But do you really think that the more digital we go in, we are more getting exposed to the cyber threats? Do you agree, guys? Yes, of course. And the more we are getting into security threat, the more kind of fraud which is happening these days for social engineering. So maybe I will put another question for the audience this time. So Hariom would just need your support with the second question for the audience. In the meantime, I would like to just get the views from you as an audience. What do you think is social engineering? What do you think this social engineering can become a problem? A quick question for the audience. Anyone would like to talk about, maybe answer in chat? What is social engineering? So guys, social engineering is something we are getting exposed to almost on daily basis. The moment you go online, maybe Facebook, LinkedIn, any other platform, you're traveling by metro, you're getting exposed to a threat called social engineering. A lot of people get confused social engineering with social networking, which is actually not true. But yes, social networking sites these days are one of the most common way to use social engineering. So what is social engineering as a layman? When people try to manipulate you psychologically and try to get information out of you, we call it social engineering. And trust me, no matter how smart do you think we are, most of us might believe that no, nobody can fool us around. We will not get friend to anybody on Facebook just like that. Trust me, people do get. Because the fraudsters here are equally smart, or maybe they're outsmarting us now. Couple of years back, if you recall, there was a infamous case where a defense professional who was very, very senior got trapped on Facebook. It's called honey trap. So the imposter, the fraudster, posed as a UK or a British journalist and tried to get lot of confidential information for defense. It was simply a message on Facebook. And I'm sure the one who was getting targeted is well trained. Somebody in defense is getting very, very well trained for such thing, but then they still got exposed, they still get into trap. Now that's exactly what you call social engineering. So social engineering is just a way through which the malicious activities are being done. So here the result is that most of the people think that about 71% people believe that the organization's overall security strength when it comes to Facebook and Twitter kind of thing is moderately fine. So that's what you think about security threats. Though most of the companies have firewalls, you have Facebook, social networking sites you're not able to open, still that's a threat. So when it comes to social engineering does not always come with Facebook and LinkedIn only. Every time you expose, when you talk to someone socially, you are getting exposed to social engineering. And do you know what is the success rate of these kind of attacks? It's 1 in 10, which is huge. Even if you use a genuine mail or a genuine business, the success rate will not be as high as 1 in 10. But these kind of threats are, the success rate is 1 in 10. It's really, really high. The basic reason these attacks are successful because people have a tendency to trust. We as a human being trust. When we talk to someone, we trust. You get a friend on Facebook, and after few attempts, you try and test the friend. The friends is basically getting passed in all your tests, and then it's time for him or her to attack you. So when it comes to social engineering, people do share their banking details, their passwords, their personal details, their KYC details on social networking sites and through social engineering. And do you know, for hacking, the most successful technique is social engineering. If you set your password, what is the clue? What is your mother's maiden name? What is your first school's name? I have to just spend few minutes on your Facebook page. Your mama is there on Facebook. Your school teacher might be there on the Facebook too. I have to just connect the dots and that's it. I know your password. I know how to reset the password as well. So this is how hacking happens, right? So these kind of things are very, very common when it comes to social engineering. Another technique which is being used for social engineering is called phishing attack. The moment you get your mail that you have won a lottery, or your income tax refund is due, or RBI is sending you some mail for a credit card kind of thing, it's nothing but a phishing. We call that phishing attack. Again, most of you who are well educated, professional might believe that these kind of things, I mean, you cannot get into trap. So let me tell you an interesting story. One very famous actress's husband, who's also another actor, I wouldn't like to name maybe, he got a message about 3 years back that he has won a lottery of 3 lakh rupees. And the imposter said that you deposit a lakh rupees or so for service tax. And he did. And next day he went to cyber police and he complained about it. When I was reading the news, I was actually thinking, I mean, just 3 lakh rupees. For these people, I mean, if it would have been 3 crore rupees, probably would have been a point. People like me would definitely think about. So jokes about, that's how people getting trapped. This is also phishing. Phishing has variant. We call it wishing. Voice plus phishing, wishing. When you get a call next time that you have got a credit card from RBI or your bank account is being compromised, it's nothing but wishing, voice and phishing. Then another variant of phishing is smishing. SMS plus phishing, you call it smishing, or it's also called phishing. So next time when you get a SMS that your bank account is being compromised, please call on this number. It's nothing but an example of smishing. So this is how social engineering comes into picture when it comes to phishing and so on. Now, from here, I would like to come to my next jury member, Poonam. Poonam will also talk about some cyber threats and vulnerabilities. So, Akhil, if you can pitch in and introduce Poonam here. Please unmute, Akhil.
So yeah, Kamal, if you can just go to Poonam's slide. So Poonam has about 15 years of experience in the financial and telecom services industry. So she's currently working with Allianz in Australia. And if I talk about her previous employers, she was actually working with companies like Generali and also other companies. So in terms of her interest, she is a hiker. She loves biking, but yes, she would be talking about the scams that are actually happening in the corporate space. So I spoke about the recent scam that has happened with Jarman as well as Honda. But Poonam, over to you in terms of sharing light around how scams are happening. What are the innovative ways wherein people are getting into scams, especially at the backdrop of digital. So over to you, Poonam.
Please unmute, Poonam.
I think Poonam is already unmuted. Poonam, can we request you to please speak? I think there's some problem with Poonam's mic, so maybe we can go to the next speaker, Kanwar. We can't hear you, Poonam.
So in the meantime, Poonam is trying to come on board. So I would
Yeah, maybe she can just log in again and check. Yes, please.
So in the meantime, I would like to take this journey again forward from here. Poonam, are you there? Poonam, can we take it forward?
We can see Poonam, but I think we can't hear her.
I think it's perfectly fine. Let's go to the next speaker. Yeah.
Sure.
When it comes to fraud, there is a very interesting theory which works. We call it fraud triangle. It's a very old concept though, but then till date, it holds true. There are three angles why fraud occur, and that's what we call fraud triangle. So these three angles called opportunity, pressure, and rationalization. And that's where the entire fraud comes into picture, whether it is corporate fraud or otherwise. When it comes to financial pressure, most of us might believe that people who do not have money are tend to conduct more fraud. Do you agree with me? Is it true, guys, that anyone who has lack of money or less money is more prone to commit fraud? If that's true, then why do you think people from top corporates, from the top management are committing such frauds? Where is the need for money? Now, I have a very simple and a question on the lighter note. Do you think we all are doing a fraud day in, day out? Anyone? What do you think, guys? The answer is yes or no. Are we doing?
Maybe we're not aware that we're doing.
All right. So how many times people who are working have taken the pen from office and taken home? How many times you have used office printer and scanner for personal purpose? Is it fraud? Again, most of us might believe, no, how can this be a fraud? This is nothing. One, that amount is too less. Second, we work here full day. What difference will it make to the company if I take it? So and so forth. But trust me, guys, this is called asset misappropriation, and worldwide, this is most frequently done fraud. Most frequently done. I agree that the quantum of the fraud may be less, but you make a consolidated impact of it. One pen, 10 rupees each, multiply by number of employees, multiply number of months, the frequency, and then see the impact. May not be that less. So that's what you call financial pressure. The financial pressure can be real, the financial pressure can be perceived also. Not every time people commit crime or commit fraud because they really need money. The next angle, what we see in the fraud triangle, is called opportunity. The company with weaker internal control always gives an opportunity to commit fraud. The company with a stronger control will not give you opportunity to commit fraud. And that comes rationalization. Every time a fraudster commit a fraud,
Hi.
he has a rationalization.
Okay, I think Poonam is here, Converse, so we
So
can.
we can take it jointly from here.
Yeah.
So I was just discussing the fraud triangle, and we were talking about pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. So over to you, Poonam.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kamal and the panel for having me here. And as Kamal and the other speakers have talked about COVID and the scenarios that have been changed because of COVID, no one has remained untouched, right? We have COVID has created unthinkable consequences for our society, and as I think Kamal, we've been going through this fraud theory, fraud triangle. So we all have seen that fraud is not something which is new. It's not something which has been created during, it's a new word or a new buzzword. It was always, it's been there since long time, since these financial years when the transaction has been happening, in the economy. But COVID has changed the color. COVID has changed the flavor of frauds. As Akhil has also mentioned that, the kind of frauds that we have seen in past have been, shaped differently during this new time. So I just wanted to make it more related to the current scenario. I would say that, I would categorize the common frauds, the common existing frauds, and also which are assumed to occur in coming future. I've categorized those frauds into two categories. One is basically the technology driven frauds. Technology driven frauds, when we say that, and then again we can classify them as frauds which are related to misrepresentation in terms of by the sales channels and all. So, giving a real context to the current scenario, we say that what all different kind of scams, the new scams we have noticed. So reports have shown us that a very different flavor is added, which is say that we've seen that a lot of online education applications have come up. So we've seen that because of the lockdown and because of this COVID thing, schools have been closed, the educational institutions have been closed, and parents and kids, students have been struggling to keep themselves engaged, to keep themselves towards not only students but the corporate business workers also, to upskill them. They were trying to engage themselves on various learning modules, various online education applications. And this is the place, this is one of the sector wherein the fraudsters are also very, very active. So they have come up with a lot of applications which shows themselves as they are the online educators, but these are the places where these are the places where fraudsters are very, very active. They the common man, the common people have become more vulnerable to it. they connect with their victims, pretending to be a representative of the known educational applications. They offer substantial discounts for registering at the link, and we, the common man, we fall prey to it. So one very common segment is towards the online education applications. We have also seen that a lot of supply scams have been noted, and huge gap is noted and reported over there. We've seen that because of the COVID environment, there's a huge a supply shortage of the essential supplies. We've seen that fraudsters have established various fake online shops that sells essentials like medical essentials like sanitizers, masks, etc. So people, the common man, we are falling prey to it. That instead of going outside, because that's not allowed, we are using the online channel, and we are falling prey to it. So we're making payment to those channels, purchasing the goods, and huge reports have been noted wherein the orders have been placed, but the order has not reached to the person. So a huge amount has been siphoned over there. We have also noted that scam is noted in the around the counterfeit drugs. So due to the perceived difference between again the demand and supply of the essential drugs, there is a high possibility of the counterfeit drugs also getting embedded into the main economy, main supply chain, wherein the chemists, the pharmacists, and possibly even the online marketplace. So people usually they prefer not to go out and order these medicines and these stuff online, and we, the common man, usually cannot make out the difference between the we can make out the difference between the genuine and the fake, and we fall prey to it. Another thing which is a very common, which is a very interesting and a shocking, surprising scam which is noted is related to COVID-19 testing and treatment scams. So as we all know that we are not allowed to go out, and we try to confine to our premises, but there's again a panic in terms of getting ourselves tested. We all know that if we get tested, and if somebody is get found to be positive, he has to go through the mandatory quarantine. So people are also finding ways to show themselves as the representatives of wherein they offer various treatment testing treatments. And people, common man is again, they're using the fraudsters, they're using the social media and online forums when they promote the bogus testing kits, treatment products, etc. And people are falling prey to it.
On behalf of audience, since most of us, we were talking about mobile app scam, and we were talking about a lot of scams in education and in healthcare. So a quick question to you. So while suppose I'm as a layman is downloading a game, and my game is asking for the permission on my contacts and my images, which is very common for most of the games these days. So am I getting exposed to any kind of threat? Is it a cyber threat to me, Poonam?
It is absolutely. And Kamal, reports have also seen that it is, we've seen that it is not the a specific age group. It is confined to a specific age group, but kids usually, because they are not too aware of that what security measures they are supposed to take care of. We're falling prey to these cyber attacks.
So
When
how
they they tend to share their personal details over there. So yes, that's again an area wherein they fall prey to it, and we are it's again yes a very critical and a sensitive area.
Right. So guys, when next time when you download any application, and specifically a game or any kind of app which is not from very known source, think twice. Why on earth an app needs the access on your picture and contact when all you have to do is playing a game? Especially if you're using Android, sometimes the Android would not even ask for your permission. Just think about downloading such an app, because the moment you download such an app, you are opening the windows of your house, and the stranger is coming in, and then you cannot stop the stranger from going ahead. Just because it has taken access on your contact, it does not mean that it will not look anything else on your phone. Same thing for your computer. So since Poonam is talking about cyber threats, so just to add here, the next time you download any patch, what generally the IT companies call it security patch, or if you're downloading any new software, please be in front of your computer. By default, everything is yes. So if you have downloaded Microsoft Windows 10, go back in setting and check everything is yes right now. Can we access your contact? Yes. Can we access your files? Yes. Have you seen that? Do you really want other to see what is happening on your computer? Now, we can assume that Microsoft is a credential provider. They would not misuse your information. Again, though I have a different opinion on that, but then the moment you download those mobile games or app on your computer, there is nobody who can protect you. And if you think that tomorrow Google or Apple will take any action against those companies, then you're wrong. They always say that you're downloading everything on your own at your own risk. It's as good as you are buying a share from market and then you ask SEBI that I have got a loss and SEBI should help. No, SEBI will not help you here. Similarly, here the Google or Apple will not help you. You have to decide what you have to download. So that was just an addition in context of what Poonam was describing. So over to you, Poonam, please.
So
Yeah,
rightly
if I
said,
can
Kamal.
just, so Pune, if I can just come in here, so because Kamalji made an interesting point that when we're downloading things from known versus unknown companies or softwares, so I think even known companies are subject to frauds, and we know that even Facebook had a problem there. So I think at this point in time, it will be interesting to hear from either of you that let's say we are not aware of it and we share this information with these software providers and somehow the data gets hacked, or let's say these companies share the data with a third. This is all personal data, right? Now, what are some of the consequences that can be there basis this particular transaction?
I think I'll be happy to invite all of you to please raise your.
Hello, Tripti, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Ma'am, we can't hear you, ma'am.
Maybe Poonam, you can take it from here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. It's echoing actually.
Yeah. I think now is it better? Is it better now?
Yes, Tripti, good to go.
Yeah, I was saying that anyone who would like to answer Akhil's question can raise hand. We can unmute. And Akhil, can you say the question again?
Okay, so my question was that obviously knowingly, unknowingly, we provide access to these software companies to kind of access our contacts or even photographs at time because we're downloading certain things. And if we say a no, it doesn't get downloaded. Now, let's say the information is there with this software company and either they on their own or somebody hacks the system and the information goes to a third party. Now, what are some of the consequences that can happen to this service provider or let's say a third party who now has access to personal information?
So while people are answering this question, I have a simple, interesting fact to share. So a couple of my friends were telling that over the dinner table, they were discussing which car to be bought. So it's a family discussion over dinner table. And the family decided, let's go with Honda City. And the moment the friend opened the laptop, he saw an ad of Honda City. Wow, what a coincidence. So most of us might believe that time that ये तो भगवान का इशारा है. This is how it but probably this is a technology ka ishara. Maybe the smart gadgets in your house are listening to you. I'm not trying to scare you out, but that's actually fact. I mean, there are a couple of instances where the Amazon and Apple have gone into legal trouble because people, I mean, sometimes the FaceTime call has been happening on its own. People are listening to you somewhere sitting at another corner of the world, and so is with Amazon. So imagine you have a device and you tell device, okay, play this song, play this movie. So what happens to the device rest of the time? They do this, they are not listening to you. Maybe they are listening to all your conversations. So as we discussed that when we go cyber, when we go digital, there are always pros and cons of everything. And my personal opinion is that when you are online, just forget about your privacy. At least in the today's scenario, you are exposed. We are exposed, right? So Akhil's question, I think,
Yeah, so I think Aryant has an answer. Aryant, would you like to speak? And then Purva also want to say something. Yeah.
Hello.
We can hear you, Aryant.
Yeah. Yeah. As they were saying that they have the information, so what consequences there can be. So, as we have seen many cases where since they are having the information, they can access people bank accounts and access bank accounts and steal their money and also share the information with others. Since we have seen the cases of cases like Facebook where they have shared many people's information and they, this was becoming a big issue. So these type of consequences there can be that when people have our information.
true. That's
Absolutely. Yeah.
Aryant, thanks a lot. Purva, would you like to add something?
Ma'am, I felt the same thing they said about Honda car. That when we say that we want to buy something and that stuff, suddenly an ad comes while in Instagram and Facebook and whatever app we are using. So I found that, like, yes, they can hear us.
So Google is our second mother, guys, these days. I was traveling to Chandigarh, and before that, 1 week before, I was start getting messages from Ola Uber that take a cab from Chandigarh airport to this. I said, I mean, how did Google know that I'm traveling to Chandigarh? And then suddenly I saw my mail that I'm getting a lot of mails from hotels from Chandigarh, like Go, I will go, and so on. So then I realized that Google is my second mother, who's really worried that I'm going to travel and they want to make sure that I get a hotel and a cab on time. So that's called privacy intrusion. The tickets were there on my Gmail, and that's the trigger, which I
You're right, Kanwa. So I have Nupur who would like to add. Nupur, can you please share what you would like to add?
The ad bit that we're talking about that says that you think about buying something, or for example, I'm looking at a subscription that I'm going to take up on Coursera or whatever XYZ things you may be looking for. What happens is, first of all, you're allowing Google to use cookies out of your browsers. So that is one thing that happens. Second, there are people who get paid to do that. So there's this job profile called digital media optimization. So if you see ads of something that you search in Google, it automatically comes to your Instagram handles or your Facebook handles. So people are actually getting paid to do that for you. And if you do not allow cookies, what happens is some sites, so there are some sites, for example, the Telegraph, I think, is a newspaper in the UK that doesn't let you read their articles if you don't give them access to your cookies. So what happens is, if they don't, if you start, for example, if you start a YouTube channel, I don't know if you people know this, but what happens is YouTube makes income out of the ads that you're seeing on YouTube. So if you do not see those ads eventually, it is not reaping into capitalism or consumerism. Nobody is earning anywhere. So there could be a pro and con to everything. If Alexa wouldn't have been there, Alexa captures everything. If I don't know if you know this, but if you have Alexa at your home, everything is being captured, whatever you talk about. So if you see as a pro to it is that you wouldn't me or you or anybody else wouldn't be earning as much as they are, because it's a chain, it's a food chain sort of a thing. Secondly, the cons are, see, I understand losing bank account information is like a extreme end, but what else do you lose if it's not confidential in terms of documents? If your search history does not have something that's questionable, I don't think there is an issue there, unless obviously it's your bank account or something. So you can't go to the extreme and always. There is a middle ground because of a supply chain works there. People would lose jobs if you're not watching ads. People will lose jobs if you're not into if you don't click on that Amazon ad and search for something that you've actually searched for. So it's like it's a 50-50 ratio to it. Of course, crime could be to another extent. I mean, if you read about the Twitter crime that happened a few days back, where a lot of influential people, their accounts were hacked and people actually paid money thinking, that, okay, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, these people are putting ads on Twitter, then this may be actually legit. So there's no end to it, but yes, there are still laws in the making, but you can't completely say that it's an extreme end of crime. I believe there is a middle ground there too.
So Nupur, to add to your point, obviously you make a lot of relevant points. In fact, Arihant, you and Purva all make relevant points. So a couple of points which I want to add here is, so if you go by the European Union laws, obviously post Brexit the things might be different, but if you go with European Union laws, even name, gender, age, etc. is personal information which cannot be shared. So if there are companies which are handling that kind of a data, then they need to sign up with what is called as the ISO 27001 certificate, right? So that's an annual certification that organizations have to go through. And if that is not in place, and if there is any breach, it can actually lead to civil criminal proceedings, both in terms of the management as well as the organization. So that's point number one. A second element, when we talk of these ads and all of these social media, so statistics say that only 5% of the internet is what is visible to you, right? So whatever you see, that's just 5% of the internet, and the 95% of internet is what we call as the dark web. Now, what is happening on the dark web, you actually have no idea. In fact, none of us have actually seen it. It's like a galaxy that you can only think of, but not actually see and feel. Now, what is happening is, so historically, we used to have hackers who used to hack all of these, right? But now with digital and etc. coming and picking it up, now companies are hiring professionals who are ethical hackers. Now, why are these professionals getting hired? Because they need to think like a fraudster. They need to think like a hacker that, okay, tomorrow if my company's website has to be hacked, what will go wrong or what can go wrong, right? And then they start building in controls in their website so that the probability of hacking and the impact on account of hacking, that can actually go down. So you're right that it has to be a midway, but then the irony of life is that what we see is only the tip of the iceberg, and it's like so much down below. And if we are not aware of all of this, then we can succumb ourselves to own frauds. So that's where the drawing of the line actually has to come in.
So thanks, Akhil. I mean, this is very interesting to know. And I was told we had a cybersecurity session with Anand Naidoo, and he actually explained that in case of Android phone, I think even if you're not using the phone, the people are listening to you. The cameras which we are using, they're listening to you. So I think it's become very important, and it's difficult to understand. And I think our next session should be how to be away from Facebook and Twitter and whatever, which should be the main sessions now, because the kind of no privacy thing which exists with the kind of softwares and apps, and if you watch any recent detective movies, which Netflix, which we are watching a lot, you can see the camera which seeing us right now is normally if you keep the laptop open, you don't close the flap of your laptop, the camera is on even then. So whether your laptop is switched off or on, we've been told that it keep working. So few people have started keeping a tape over it just to ensure that by mistake they don't leave it on. So I think it's very interesting. Yeah, please carry on.
That's absolutely true. Even if you switch off your smartphone, the smartphone still interact with the signals around. It's very, very difficult for you to get away from technology when you have a smartphone, when you have smart devices. So the only piece of advice here would be that be a little careful when you interact with technology. And of course, Nupur, I completely agree with you that the cyber comes with a lot of benefits as well. So we can't say that everything is bad about it, everything is bad about sharing your information, but many part of it can be misused. So that's exactly the agenda of we discussing about it. Over to you, Poonam. You want to take it?
Rightly said, Kamal. And just going back to Nupur's point that yes, we cannot do away with technology when we say that technology is the enabler. more technology is the solution. And when we say that we really cannot live our lives without technology, and here we are not promoting that we should not use technology and we should stay away from FB or Twitter or other social websites, but the key thing is to be mindful, to be aware. We know that this entire system is working on the advertisements. We need to really give access to cookies and to other access queries. But the only thing, it starts from you, is to be mindful, be aware of your privacy settings. That's what we've been seeing. And when we say that, usually people feel, and we've been reading this, and we've been reading huge and whole lot of reports around that, around influential people are getting hacked, or their accounts getting hacked, they're falling prey to the frauds. And we feel that it's been happening to them and it cannot happen to us because we are no one. But it's not the thing. It starts from us. We have to be really, really aware of our privacy settings. When I say that, very small things, when we relate it to that, from where we can start. First thing is, as Kamal, you also mentioned that whenever we are using the network, we really need to ensure that we are using the verified and the authentic network. We should avoid freewares. We should be using proper anti-malware and antivirus devices should be installed in our system. When I was talking about those online frauds, then we really cannot do away with those online platforms, because that has become one of the savior in this critical timings. We really need to be very, very cautious while selecting the platform. So the only piece of advice would be that whenever we are ordering, let's go to it, it is always advised that we should go to the company's official website and then make the payments. That's a very interesting thing. I would not say that only interesting. It is again a shocking kind of a scam which has been noted. So we've seen that organizations have with this COVID thing, the economies were shattered, and not only in country but across world economies got shattered, and government have really pitched in with. They have come up with a lot of fiscal supports, and they've come up with a lot of programs which have been talked in detail earlier. One of the scam which we have noted out of that, one of the scheme was the bank fraud, which was related to the moratorium scam. So wherein it was to help people, the common man, to opt for moratorium, we have seen that people were really made a victim of this particular program. So yes, just summarizing all these scams that we have noted, the key thing that which has been which really needs to be taken care of is to be really, really be aware and mindful of what we are using, how we are using, and it really starts from you. Yeah, over to you, Kamal.
And before we move on to the next segment and next speaker, I would like to introduce Tripti Singhal Sumani here. That's the right time and right place to introduce. Tripti is a chartered accountant and she's MSME success coach. I mean, I've never seen such a passionate person. I've attended so many sessions with her. She's really passionate about creating a very strong ecosystem. And she has created a very interesting incubator, what you call womenator. So the idea is that women entrepreneurs who are successful, who are into jobs, who are into successful business, are supporting the another women entrepreneur. And when it comes to supporting, it's not just about advising on, say, financial part or others, but its entire segment is being covered, whether it is fundraising, whether it is financial advice, whether it's strategy. It's complete thing. So anyone who would like to start a new business can definitely contact Womenator, and Tripti has created such a wonderful incubator which creates a full-fledged it's a bucket which has everything. I mean, I was thinking when I started my business, I would have found somebody like Tripti would have been really, really great. And not this Womenator, she has created a lot of other segments like Rasoi Queen, and then she's supporting women from all the parts, be it finance, be it agriculture, be it handicraft, and she's a very prominent person when it comes to PhD Chamber of Commerce and a lot of other government organization. And before I move to the next segment, my heartfelt thanks to Tripti for creating such a wonderful, platform for all the SMEs, MSMEs, and creating such webinars which varies from whether it talks about cybersecurity, which talks about fundraising. So every segment of life is being touched. So that's thank you so much, Tripti. Before we move on to the next segment.
My pleasure, Kanwal.
Okay, so now from here, I would like to go quickly to Sana. Okay, Sana would like to share some case study when it comes to cyber fraud.
Yeah, in fact, Kamal, when you were talking about Tripti and her initiative, so one tagline that came to my mind, and just a recommendation to Tripti, is Tripti, you can have a tagline saying one stop entrepreneurial shop, so that all the solutions are available there. So just a suggestion. Yeah. Okay.
Thank
So
you so much, Nikhil.
yeah. So, okay, so Sana is again a chartered accountant. So we are a community of chartered accountants. We love being CA. So once a CA, always a CA, no matter how difficult the journey is, how long the journey is. So Sana is a chartered accountant, a company secretary, and also a DSA. She's a founder of IIA DC Women's Circle as well as Study Khazana. So Sana, I invite you in terms of sharing your insights on how COVID is impacting different sectors and how do you see the way forward. Sana?
Yeah. Thank you, Akhil. Thanks, Kamaljeet and Tripti, for organizing this wonderful session. While we heard from Kamaljeet about taking up the cyber frauds, startups and all, they are not an exception to this. So what happened recently is that there are a lot of when Kamal was talking about frauds, about the cyber security, and she shared her experience of how the Google and Alexa is taking care of your daily activities, because of the network and the technology which we are using as of now. So one recent fraud which came to my mind is related to SIM cards as well. So if we talk about cyber fraud, it is not only with the devices, but also with the SIM cards. SIM cards are also vulnerable to the cyber frauds. So when we talk about it, recently it was reported in Times of India that what happened in this case is individual was asked to provide a OTP received on his mobile, and the fraudster started drawing money from using his details. So he got a call from a fraudster in relation to the activation of his mobile SIM card. So you must have been getting some messages to upgrade your SIM card to match with 4G or something. So similar kind of thing, and using that OTP, 1 lakh rupee was deducted from his account in 3 different installments. Another fraud which happened related to the SIM cards again is related to the while upgrading the SIM card. So mobile number of the victim was deactivated and his banking information was misused by the fraudster. So what happened is the cyber criminal claimed that he was working in a call center for mobile service provider and asked the victim to upgrade his SIM card from 2G to 4G, or else his all services associated to his numbers will be stopped. So that person was under this impression that yes, if my services are stopped, and since this phone is really necessary, so using that fake scheme, he was able to transfer around 2 lakh rupees from his account in different small transactions. So, and another one is very interesting related to the Maze ransomware. While Poonam touched base on the ransomware frauds, so it was a threat actors extracted unencrypted and encrypted data from their network. What happened in this case is a ransom attack disrupted a IT service company conduit, and they stole the unencrypted and encrypted files both. And the amount involved in this is approximately $70 million. So it was a huge threat which was reported.
So thank you for sharing such statistics, Anna. I mean, you can see the impact of fraud. Few $1 million, few $1 billion, and so on. So an interesting fact says that every company gets hit by fraud every now and then. When I say every now and then, it could be monthly basis. That's what I read in an article. So we all understand that technology gives us lots of benefits when it comes to a business, when it comes to as an individual. But of course, there are certain challenges also, and the challenges are becoming slightly higher with the current scenario of COVID-19. But then I'm very sure that if we all use our skill set, and since most of you are from the finance background and would like to have your career in the similar field, my very brief piece of advice is that the fraud investigation and forensic is a field where sky is the limit when it comes to getting the returns, when it comes to enjoying the task. I've been doing it since almost 8+ years now, entirely into forensics, and trust me, every single day is challenging, and I love being in this profession every single day. So whether you are into job or you're planning to start your own practice or your own consulting, this is the profession. The more the cyber fraud, the more the need for cyber security professionals. And that's where I see lots of potential. If you are a startup or you're planning to do start a startup, of course, Tripti can definitely hold your hand and take you to the next level. And probably this is the area where you can think about starting your own startup in artificial intelligence and blockchain, into cybersecurity. If you are into job, just think about upgrading your skill set in the similar field. So with this, we would like to wind it up here.
So, Kanwa, before we bring this to an end, I would like if you can suggest all our participants, all of them are actually pursuing chartered accountancy or already a chartered accountant. And cybersecurity has become a very important thing at the moment. And what I understand, what is one small course or a 3 months or 6 months partial course which they can do maybe over the year of 1 year, which or Coursera, one course which you would like to suggest to all our participants, because today's cybersecurity knowledge, whether you're doing any kind of accounting or financial practice, you should be aware about. So if you have any insight, if you can quickly ping or share with us, we'll be happy to.
Sure, Tapti, I'll be happy to do that. So guys, very quickly, there is a globally recognized certification called Certified Fraud Examiner. In short, we call it CFE. It's governed by a body which is based out of US. This is the certification which is globally recognized. No matter which company you goes in, which industry you are in, or which country you are in, it is globally accepted and huge in demand. So since it's a certification, all it takes 2 to 3 months time for you to prepare and give the exam. The exams are online, on demand. You can give it anytime, and you can give the exam from home. So there is no exam center worldwide for this certification. Not in this era, it was not there before also. And once you are CFE, the demand across industry, across company, and across countries is really, really high. I mean, I'm myself a CFE, and I highly recommend this certification to all of you, you being a chartered accountant. And apart from that, the CA Institute also offers one certification which is similar in nature for members. So maybe you can consider that certification as well. Both are really highly recommended in this.
Thank you so much, Kanwal. That's really thankful for taking up such an important topic for us today. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Tripti, for giving us wonderful platform. It was a brief discussion, but we would like to definitely come up with a new series where we will talk more into cyber threats and how to use, not to use the social networking platform. And once again, thank you from all of us, all my jury members, myself, and a special thanks to Tripti for again giving us wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you all the participants.